The whole thing was collapsing in on itself. The pressure becomes nasty. Shall we let it crash? It's fate telling us to stop. He says, come to the pub. And I swear, he had these scribbly bits of paper everywhere. He had about 70% of what Top Gear was going to become. Deep down, they knew without Jeremy, they're damaged. They then are on that mission to go, Top Gear is our property and it's bigger than anyone who hosts it.
Would you ever consider helping the BBC to recreate Top Gear?
Never fear a storm.
Be ready to adapt.
The skill is staying true to ourselves.
Andy, welcome to the show. One of the things that comes through in the book is that without the brain and the drive and the occasional madness of Jeremy Clarkson, very little of what you've been involved in would have happened.
No, we wouldn't be here. That book would be a cover and then there'd be some blank pages because he... the start of it, or the root of it, is that what people see is this big TV presenter and now inbound for National Treasure, the way the farm is going, sort of thing, something you never thought would happen. But he's actually, and you cut him in open, he's a tabloid daily newspaper journalist.
Right.
That's where he was trained. That's what he loves the most. And that, you're only good at that if you're driven by stories and your ability to spot them and come up with them. And that's what he is. So you've got a combination of his story, like machine in his head, is fantastic. Then he's got that ability to be bold. So when we had to bring back Top Gear, you know, it goes off, it's been on, it's doing all right on the BBC. 1999, 2000, Jane Root, controller of BBC Two, takes the old Pebble Mill Top Gear off air because she's saying at this point, as a factual entertainment show or whatever they call them, consumer thing, it's looking old. You know, you've got Trinny and Susanna, what not to wear. You've got changing rooms. You've got Jamie Oliver with his little scooter. And next to that, you've got Top Gear looking old. You've got the presenters just saying 5-minute things in solitary confinement, and then you go to the next one. So she goes, that comes off air. He rang me shortly after she said that it doesn't come back until she's got a good proposition on the table. He says, come to the pub. I come to the pub, and I swear, he had these scribbly bits of paper everywhere. He had about 70% of what Top Gear was going to become already worked out.
What was on those bits of paper then?
He'd worked out that it should happen in a place, and he'd worked out it should be somewhere, not a studio, like a hangar. He was like, we don't make it, if we go into a studio, it's LE or it's something like that. So we make it a home, it's a base.
Yeah.
Base, not a, it's where Top Gear lives when the lights are off, sort of thing. So a hangar made sense because then we could be on an airfield and then we could build a track. And he was like, and if we have the track, we can, two things. All those sort of tests of fast cars that you've been doing on Top Gear in the past, they're all done right round in the Midlands. So he's like, you're in a Ferrari, a Lamborghini going, this car's amazing. And it's like 58 miles an hour because it's all you can do.
Yeah.
And he's like, if we've got a runway and we've got to make a bit of a track, we can really open them up properly, show the full speeds. And then anyway, and we can use the track for entertainment as well. We'll get guests in. We'll have a chat with them about the car history, but they've got to do a lap and set a lap time. And what he was doing is magpieing him from different places. So we'll set laps of the fancy cars that we test. We'll have a lap board for that. And we'll have a lap board for guests and lap times. And we'd both read Nick Hornby, High Fidelity. And if you read that sort of the male brain in that book of those guys who nerd away in that record shop, they always, whenever they start to talk about something, they go, top 5. Yeah, top 5. And it is a male thing, I think, lists. Because lists are so pointless in anybody else's world. But we're drawn to doing them. So he knew that would press that button. And then the other thing that was, the two other things that were quite revolutionary in terms of the presenting of cars was he said, we don't test a car until it's on sale in this country in right-hand drive so that somebody can watch it on the show and then go down the showroom. And at the time, Top Gear would do what the magazines do, like Autocar, and everybody was like, if Ferrari launched a left-hand drive Ferrari in Italy, but it's a year from coming to Britain, everybody still goes over and films and writes about it, even though it's not going to be here for a year and it's in left-hand drive and it's on Italian roads. And he's like, why are we doing that? And I crap myself. Because as a producer, you're going, no, we can get scoops, we can get exclusives, we get all those words. And he went, no, we wait. We wait.
Why?
We let everyone else go first. Because he'd, again, worked out that, he said, we've got to pull ourselves out of that arms race of car magazines,
right,
where they chase the exclusive, because they're doing it for a niche audience of nerds who want to read it first. And he's like, we've got to accept we're not that. We don't do that now. We wait for our TV audience, who's going to be broader, and we go for them. So we had to wait 2 years before we drove a Ferrari Enzo, and you'd watch everyone else talking about it, doing it, and we'd wait, and he was right. It didn't make any difference. No. And then the other thing he did was, same logic, he said, we're going to do a news section in the middle, and he had a purpose for it. It became a cockabout as the show got bigger, but the first purpose was, if you've got a car like the new Golf or the new Ford Escort, they're very important cars because they sell a lot, but his argument is because he'd shot enough cars, they don't make telly. What can you say about a new Golf? It's going to be fine. There's no point in devoting 6-7 minutes of film to it. So he goes, so what we'll do is we'll go, new Golf on sale, we've driven it, it's great, it costs this, you can have it in these 3 engine specs, next. And then he said, and then we'll save our films for more interesting cars, Skoda Yetis or whatever, you know, that don't sell so well, but you can make telly from them. So he's doing all these things, and I'm sitting in the pub going, Jesus, and like, and what about the celebs who won't do a lap? And he went, well, they don't come on the show. And I'm like, no, we've got a bend. And he's like, well, no, we never give. And he's like, celebs are twats. And I'm like, and I'm thinking, well, you are one, so you know. So I can't argue with this fact, but he was right.
But I love the idea that he has the kind of courage of his own convictions, because that's like a lot of visionary stuff. And it actually, for people who are listening to this now who might be 20, 30 years younger than us, they probably hear this and go, well, that's quite ordinary. It was not quite ordinary in 2002.
No.
It was not happening 20, 25 years ago.
What he did was that thing of you pick the vase up and you smash it against the wall. So that's the old show.
Yeah.
And then everyone goes, what have you just done? And he goes, well, that's not going back together, is it? So he removes the option by smashing it.
That's
and you can only go forward.
Yeah.
But so he had enough thoughts down on paper to get us over the line, to get Jane Root to go, right, go do it. But what we didn't have at the time, the goal was still refresh the Top Gear of Pebble Mill. So we weren't thinking about, you know, minis going down ski jumps or Reliant Robin space shuttles or building amphibious cars or grannies doing donuts or all that sort of stuff. That wasn't in any of the plans. The relationship between the three, we had no expectation. It was just 3 people who got on together all right. But that they would become literally like, people thought they were Morecambe and Wise living together, you know. No, there was no plan for that. That was all organic development.
When you watch, like, let's say show number 3 or 4 that you put together with Jeremy and with Richard and with James, are you proud of those shows now? Or do you look and go, man, there was no relationship between them and it wasn't crazy, it wasn't fun,
well,
it was
that first
slow.
series was like, I forbade the BBC when I had the power to do it to not show series 1, you know, because they put them on repeat. I was like, no, that one goes into like a vault.
Is that true?
Yeah, I was like, because it's so shit.
Can you see it anywhere?
Couldn't see it anywhere. Now, as soon as it all went
surely.
tits and we were all shown the door, they start punting it out. But it was so crap compared to what we didn't have James in series 1. We had Jason Dorr doing the used car stuff.
I remember now. Yeah.
Jason was good, and that was a hangover of us going, people need consumer news. Yeah. And we'll give them that because we help people save a few quid. But once, again, organically, as we start to go, hey, can a granny do a donut? Hey, can a nun jump a monster truck? And like these are little fill-in things that we're doing to amuse ourselves. And the Stig starts to become a character that kids are like loving. You start to realise quite quickly that There's no point in us talking about used deals on Citroens, deals on used Citroens. We'll leave that to someone else. So we kind of part company with Jason and then go back and get James,
right,
who we hadn't been allowed to have.
Why not?
Because Jane Root said, when we cast this new show, it's new faces apart from Jeremy. So we do huge, so we're 2001. So it's like new faces apart from Jeremy. So that means people like Tiffany Dell, who's brilliant, can't be on it because he's an older face. So we start casting around and we do open auditions. Never, ever. We got hundreds and hundreds of VHSs coming in to the office. 90% of them are people doing donuts around B&Q car parks. And they're like, this is my audition. And you're like, yeah, keep doing that. Sorry, B&Q. And then one day, the girl who was in charge of looking at all the tapes, Kate, she went, have you got a minute? Come and have a look at this one. Come and look at this one that's come in. So she slots it in the old VHS machine. She went, what he's doing is a bit shit, I do not know. And we looked at it and there was a man and he was in a sort of party shop Batman outfit standing on a wall. And the car that he was going to talk about was below him. Then he said some Batman type things, jumps off the wall and lands next to the car and then starts talking about the car. And none of it had any, the Batman thing had nothing. It could have been a Fiesta.
Yeah.
It made no sense what he was doing. And I said to Kate, what is he doing? She went, fuck knows. And we were like, yeah, we haven't got a clue. But there was something about him and his energy. So we were like, we all agreed we like him. So we said, right, let's put him on the audition list. And she's like, Richard Hammond. Right, okay, I'll get him in.
That was Richard Hammond?
That was Richard Hammond. I think he was on Men and Motors at the time.
And why was he dressed up in a Batman outfit?
I think he's on Men and Motors, and Men and Motors didn't have a lot of budget. They were a really punky car show, and they did the best with what they had, and they had a laugh. They had a really great spirit, but they didn't have a lot of money. And I think everyone was left to do what they wanted. So if you're still finding your feet, if he went, I'm going to go and get a Batman outfit, they'd go, yeah, go on. There was no why? So, but he was clearly good. So we did the auditions in West London in this TV sort of studio. And the auditions were, auditionee comes in, talks about a car. It was a Renault Aventime. So a weird car, say some words about that. Then do the mock news section with Jeremy, go through a few press releases, see how you get on with him. Everyone comes through, does their bit. We get to Jeremy and Richard. Richard does his audition and it's only okay. It's not great. And we're like, oh, this was our big hope. Oh no.
Why was it only okay?
It was just okay. So come to the end of the audition and we're all shuffling our papers going, oh, that wasn't what we hoped for. And then Richard just went, I fucked this up, haven't I? And we were like, no, full British politeness.
Yeah.
Not at all. No, not at all. No, good God, no. He went, no, I have. I fucked it up. Same as I fuck everything up. Then starts this monologue about things he's fucked up in his past career moves. And it gets funnier and funnier because the self-deprecation and the way he paints the pictures. And it climaxes him with him going, and then I tried to be a radio DJ. And the peak of my career was Radio Cumbria, the nighttime slot, so, full Alan Partridge through till dawn. And the peak of the show was me reading out, 25-minute long list, the names of lambs up for adoption. Right. And that's the peak of his radio career. So by this point, Jeremy's in tears because of the delivery of Richard, just onslaught of failure. And he's doing his audition again by talking about how much he screwed up. And we were everywhere. Porter, all of us were in bits.
That's Richard Porter, the writer.
Richard Porter, yeah. And we were laughing and laughing so much. And then it was like, okay, forget what he did.
Yeah.
He's a keeper. We have to have him.
And what I like about that is particularly now we're in this world of perfection. Everything on social media is perfect. People come onto this podcast, right?
Yeah.
And they like to say, well, we had a plan and we knew what we were going to do and we carried out the plan and that's why I'm successful. And what I love about this is that Richard Hammond has basically gone, well, I'm shit at stuff. That's why you hired him. And you're also I know that Jeremy had that plan in the pub that day, but it almost feels to me like that was kind of... that was the framework, but everything that's in it you're kind of, I don't want to be rude and I want you to take this in the right way. It feels to me like you're stumbling into the success that Top Gear became.
Yeah, it's fully, that whole book is about accidents.
Yeah.
Accidents all the way. Because you get these huge shows, like we're watching Traitors, you watch Celebrity, Love Island, all of them. They're tested to death before they go on air. The Apprentice. And they come out of the traps and they're pretty much brilliant from the get-go because they know what they want to achieve and they know they can format them around the world. And we didn't. We just went, oh, we've got our 3 million. And Jane Root will now leave us alone, series 2.
So that's the BBC saying, get 3 million and we're happy.
And then they left us alone because who's interested in cars at the BBC on the top floor? Nobody. So they leave us to it. It's like, tick, that works. So then left to our own devices, we start to piss about. Like, what can we do? Jim Wiseman. Do you know Jim?
I know Jim well, yeah.
Yeah. So Jim is like sitting there and Jim's brain goes that direction, like when everyone else goes in that direction. Yeah. But it goes in the same direction as Jeremy's. Like, he just flips everything. So Jim one morning, he goes, you know, you're always getting like Evel Knievel, like, how many buses can a bike jump? He went, no one's asked how many bikes a bus can jump, right? And you know that straight away, that is a Fast Show sketch in the making because the punchline is already there. And we love that Fast Show idea of the punchline, unlucky Alf is going to fall down a hole. We know that we build it up and build it up. This bus is coming towards this row of 30 bikes. And, you know, and you're doing all the crap like, oh, I'll probably clear 15 of them, you know, oh, I'm helping for 18. And when it goes up this ramp, you just know it just lands on all of them. And so Jim was bringing that kind of vibe and he was dovetailing with Jeremy really quickly.
And he's a producer, Jim.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I came in one morning and he was talking to this woman and she was getting really angry. And he'd watched a documentary about a bloke living with a bear in Canada. They always have those on, you know, bears in the kitchen doing cornflakes and that. And he's going, well, what if we got it on automatic? And you can hear this woman getting angrier and angrier. And then he went, all right, well, what about a monkey? And then, like, she just gets angrier and angrier. And he put his phone down. I was like, who was that? And he went, it was a zoo. And I was just trying to see if we could get a bear to drive. And I was like, so it didn't go well, did it? He went, no, worse than that, you're getting a call from the police. So it's like, and then James, and then Jim would go, okay, next. Like we'd do these shoots, the road trips, and I'm in the edit and I'm getting all the pieces to camera that James has said and Richard said and Jeremy said, and they hit the things, they got the points they want to make. And half of James's were like, oh, look at that church over there. That is, and it is a lovely church, isn't it? You're like, what the fuck's that got to do with what we're doing? But
they became everything.
He forgets he's actually on a film trip.
So
he's
that
actually
wasn't
on a
you
holiday.
as a producer going, mention something mundane because people love it.
No, that is you could not make them do it.
Yeah.
Now, once a traitor arrives, they probably ramp it up a bit. You know, Jeremy does become more bombastic, and Richard does become a bit more Norman Wisdom. You know, like he will act thick, so to speak, when he just reduces everything. And James probably will act a bit more like bumbly old professor, that he'll take forever to do whatever he's got to do. So when you're doing those, you know, the bits in the film where they all meet and greet with their cars, I bought this, and then they'll have a pop at each other's choices. And you can, just before you're about to shoot that, you can see Jeremy in his car and he's going, because he's a writer and he doesn't leave anything to chance. He can free flow, but he wants his hit points. He wants them down. He knows what he's going to say. And James is kind of similar. And Hammond's on his phone, vaping, looking at whatever, talking to Mindy, whatever. And I'm like, we are filming in like 10 minutes, you know. He's going, yeah, fuck off. I know that. And then phone off, right, Richard, and he gets out the car. And then these one-liners fire in, and he just, like the Borg in Star Trek, he just absorbs what's going on and then delivers his contribution. And his contribution is to slot in a certain way, which is to knock their feet from under them.
So I find this so fascinating.
But that is, you cannot, I'm so lucky.
Yeah.
Because we never ever planned or taught that. That's just what they knew what to do. You know?
And you think it is luck?
Well, those three came together. Yeah, it was lightning in a bottle.
Absolutely
100%.
was lightning in a bottle.
The choosing of each other, the recruiting, we consciously did it. But the level it got to, we never saw that coming. So I think there's similar intelligence levels, there's similar attitude to cars, that they're all a bit lateral minded, all works. There's similar levels of mischief, that all works. But a key component was this thing about the BBC leaving us alone. Because, as you know, with TV or any show these days, the demand is that the hosts come on air perfect. They've got a relationship already. Like, where's that from?
Yeah.
And viewers can spot it when it's like a TV relationship. And we were allowed quite a few series for that to just develop. I don't think it was till, bloody hell, series 5 until Richard calls James Captain Slow. You know, he just says it one day in the news, and then that becomes his nickname. So the way they mark but 5 series.
Yeah. And that's the problem. It takes time to develop these relationships. And I think it was a hospital pass for whoever came next, because it was like, be as funny and as interesting and as well connected as the previous 3, please.
And worse than that.
On day 1.
Yeah, and worse than that, I think you had some BBC management going, I've got what this show is. It's 3 lads mucking about. Well, yes, so is League of Their Own.
Yeah. But it feels like the easiest thing to produce in the world. People just having fun together. I think it's one of the most difficult.
No, it's shot through with nuance.
Yeah.
Everywhere there's nuance. And the big one about Jeremy, in terms of that editorial brain, in terms of nuance, was you could watch our show, describe it down the phone to another TV company in another country, go, oh, well, they build crazy cars, and then everything goes wrong. And they go, right, got that. They could build a clown car where everything falls off. But what you're doing is just building an aircraft carrier for jokes. It's pointless. Whereas Jeremy was the one, and he indoctrinated everybody with it and instilled it, was, we are going to piss about, we are going to cock about, everything will go wrong, but we have to start with a premise that you can hook in. So Ambulances, probably one of our best films, where they build their own ambulances. You can look the viewers in the eye and go, do you realise an NHS, a new ambulance costs this much? Do you realise how slow they are? Do you know, the NHS hasn't got any money. We can solve this for them. So you've got that fantastic overreaching hubris, which you know is going to be your downfall. But it's actually grounded in a premise that people can go, oh yeah, wouldn't it be great if we could have new ambulances or cheaper police cars, or that you can bash and crash? So they always picked on a point that would then drive your nonsense. Then you could unleash all the slapstick and the falling over and everything else. But it was always grounded in why I've built my ambulance to be like so-and-so. And without that, you're screwed.
And of course, the wonderful thing about that as well is, although it's not necessarily a format in the traditional TV sense of a format, those are your format points, because every time it's like, we set it up, we over-promise, we under-deliver.
Yeah, those are
we get things
the
wrong.
tropes that we...
And then you can swap an ambulance for a caravan, for a supercar, for a boat stroke car, an amphibious car.
Yeah, we'll build an amphibious car. We'll build police cars.
Rinse and repeat, rinse and repeat. You know how much I love Formula One, and we know that you love the Formula One conversations here on High Performance. But the truth is that high performance in F1 isn't just what happens on the track. It's also about consistency. It's about identity. And you know what? Style works the same way, because the clothes that you wear, they become part of your story. They're the reason that you stand out. And that is why we're so excited to partner with Vestiaire Collective for the launch of their first ever menswear experience. You can now find a curated selection of standout menswear. That's Cartier watches, Louis Vuitton bags, Gucci sneakers, Burberry jackets, all available at up to 80% off retail. And it also goes the other way. If you think it's time to change up your wardrobe, you can sell your own pre-loved treasures with low fees while giving them a new lease of life. And with more than 15 years of authentication expertise, Vestiaire Collective makes buying and selling simple, stylish, and secure. Honestly, I think it's fantastic. Vestiaire Collective, the go-to destination for pre-loved premium menswear styles. To get involved, just click the link in the description to buy or sell men's pre-loved fashion. This episode of High Performance is brought to you by Sage and their AI-powered productivity assistant, Sage Copilot. Now, this is where Sage is bringing their 40-plus years of experience into the world of AI to help businesses like yours solve some of your biggest challenges in a way that's actually useful and not overwhelming. So if you're a small or medium-sized business and you need some extra help managing cash flow, chasing payments, or filing VAT, Sage Copilot is the answer. Take payment chasing, for example, right? Sage customers can get paid 7 days faster with Sage Copilot because it does the chasing for you with automatic invoice reminders at the click of a button. Get started for free. Search Sage Accounting.
As you say, we got into sort of, I'd call them like weapons in our armory. So another one was discovering that cheap cars that break down make better TV than new cars. We hadn't gone into the new Top Gear thinking that. But then when you go one day, we did that film about, can you own a Porsche for 1,500 quid? Now it starts in the office as like slightly consumer advice. People like Porsches, but they cost a lot. Can you do it for 1,500 quid? So we go off expecting to do a kind of, it'll be a bit funny, but it's like, hey, you can own a... So they set off from the City of London and they're trying to get to Brighton for challenge number 1, 1,500 quid Porsches. Jeremy's got like a 928. I mean, it's doomed at that price. And they've got to get 70 miles to Brighton or whatever. They leave the city, 8 miles they've got to a petrol station in Elephant and Castle. All 3 cars are broken down. Steam pissing out the radiators. People coming out, a lorry driver coming out going, I've got an egg, put that in the radiator.
I loved when other members of the public became
everyone's
part
involved.
of your show.
Everyone's
Do you remember
involved.
when, well, you, of course you will, like hundreds of people would turn up?
No, I know. Like we built the electric car and all the kids
just-
are helping us recharge it.
I just watched that and thought, that's where I want to get to in TV.
And it's like, and that was a key moment because I remember the director who was old school, very good director, but he was old school. And there's all this chaos, cars, steam everywhere. And he, fatal mistake, he went up to Jeremy and he went, shall I break the cruise for lunch while you get all these mended? Right. And Jeremy went, no, this is the film now. This is the film. Cars running and working is not the film anymore. It's the chaos.
Yeah.
So we flipped, and again, an accidental discovery. We found that then shonky cars are going to give you the loads.
An accidental discovery, but every other TV show, because I was working in telly at that time, when things went wrong, the director broke the crew. Yes, it's accidental, but it's Jeremy going,
No,
let's look at this a totally different
Totally
way
different
to
way.
everybody
We
else.
do this
That's
now.
the maverick thinking that...
that's right. And then when we accidentally discover we can do specials, when we go to Alabama and get our asses kicked there, but it's all good and the film becomes an hour. So we haven't planned a special. We just shot a normal film that's too long. And we go, oh, we can do specials. We then go, let's use that thing of cheap old cars that have had their day and we put them through across Africa or whatever. And then they become underdog heroes. And if you don't like cars, you can still fall in love with that car. And the 3 of them had the ability to make those cars live and impart that to somebody who didn't really like cars. So you got Rocky Balboa going on, basically. So all these happy accidents start to go, you realise when our show starts to take off, you've got to protect it from the BBC. Not in a horrible way, but once it starts getting noticed and getting bigger and all the rest of it, everyone starts coming in going, would you do this? Would you do that?
Was it because they wanted some of the credit for the success, or because they realised that...
Hey, there's plenty of people with Top Gear on their CVs that had nothing to do with it, but that is the same as every show.
Yeah.
We just like giggle at that
Success has many fathers, right? Failure's an orphan.
one. Failure is an orphan, yeah. So we knew that, we let that one go because as long as it doesn't materially interfere with us.
So what sort of things were the BBC doing that would just like create an issue in this great process?
Well, there
you're
weren't
carrying?
issues, but they were like, they needed a firm no. Because a lot of the time they were like W1A moments, as in they were quite charmingly crap. So one day, I think we're about 4 or 5 series in, we're doing well. And I get a call from the 2 management people, top floor, and go to see them, I don't know why. And they go, we have got some amazing news for you. They went, BBC 2 historically fails to attract young Black and Asian viewers. It's just not a channel they want to go to. However, your show's doing it. Your show's pulling in young Black and Asian viewers. And I was like, great, this is good news. And there was a silence and I went, right, I'll get back and I'll tell the office and I'll let everyone know. Thanks for letting us know. And they were like, don't go. And you thought, oh no, here it comes, right, with the W1A moment. And by W1A, if nobody's watched that, it's the comedy show where the BBC takes the mick out of its own ability to overthink and tie itself in knots. It is a great show.
Great show, yeah.
So this guy goes, we were just thinking that since young black and Asian viewers are watching the show, have you thought about replacing one of your team with a young black or Asian viewer? And I was like...
one of the trio.
Yeah. And I'm like, oh, here we are, W1A. Because it's like that blinding logic. And I thought, now what you do in these circumstances, you go, we'll certainly give that some thought, knowing that they'll never hear, no one will ever mention it again. And I thought, no, fuck it, I can't let this one go. Because I was just like, I said, so hang on a minute. What you're saying is young black and Asian viewers are perfectly happy of their own volition to watch three white, middle-class, middle-aged men bumbling about doing their stuff. They're happy to do that. But your response now is, no, we'll take that away from you and give you something you haven't asked for. So I was like, isn't that a bit patronising to these ethnic groups? And as soon as I said patronising and ethnic in one sentence, it was like, checkmate.
BBC panic.
I was done, yeah. Well, I say in the book, it's like the BBC meeting life raft suddenly automatically inflates. But they're like...
It's a meeting life raft. Abandon ship.
Emergency, yeah. But instead of like flares and water, it's got sentences like, good, well, we'll pick this up later, you know. So those kind of moments you have to, and I think in that culture, some producers would have gone back and gone, right, we've got to consider this because this is what they want. Whereas we would just go, shut up.
So did you take all this pressure on your own shoulders? Because a lot of people listen to high performance in leadership positions, trying to work out how to lead a team better. Like, you were working on two very different shows, I think, because when Top Gear first started, no expectations, no fame, no past glory to rely on. It was all about what could we do? And it gave you freedom.
Yeah.
Suddenly, you actually had, you know, for people that don't understand television, you and I, when I was at the BBC, not now with a podcast, but we lived and died by the overnights, right? The overnight viewing figures. How many people watched the show the previous day?
Yeah, absolute for it, yeah.
So suddenly, not only did you have that, but you had the fact that last week's overnights were 9.5, 10 million, right? So that sets the expectation.
Yeah.
Everyone's loving it. The BBC are paying more attention. The lads can't walk down the street without being stopped.
No, their fame was a joke.
How do you then lead a team differently in a very different world?
I'd like to think we led it differently, but we were... Okay, I think one thing I did, I borrowed from David Brent because I do believe...
That's my favourite sentence of the conversation so far. My leadership at Top Gear, I borrowed from David Brent.
From David Brent because I think he's much maligned. We know he's a cockend and he's created and like portrayed as a cockend. But the one bit that I absolutely think he gets right is that we have worked our society into this position where capitalism is what it is, in that we've all got to go out and earn a crust. And all the best hours of your life, all the best hours of the day are spent with people you work with and not your loved ones, your friends, your family. They're not. It's the other way around. And you get them for a bit in the evening and 2 of the 7 days a week. So that, it is what it is. That's why we do it. And I always thought David Brent kind of instinctively knew that. And although he did it for his own ends, he liked to make a bit of theatre out of The Office. You know, he did a terrible job, but his instinct was like, this place can't be drab.
Yeah.
So we did piss about a lot in our office in terms of how much fun it was. And, you know, you got people like Jim in there. It's always going to be that way. And we were always tight. And it was, failure was like celebrated. It meant to hurt and then it was celebrated, you know. So we had a good vibe in that way. But the rest of it, I would say we didn't do very well because of when the show took off and you're getting your 9 million and you don't have a format where you can refresh the next series with new contestants.
Yeah.
It's just us coming up with new films. even though we've got an armory of cheap cars, specials, build shit, we've got things that we can fall back on. You are now under so much pressure. And everything has also got so huge. The films that started out as 10 minutes are now half an hour, but you've still got the same edit schedule. You've still got the same timetable. So we're in there till 2, 3 in the morning editing these things. And we didn't work out how to delegate. We didn't know how to work out how to make it a different show. So the pressure becomes nasty. And I think we all hunkered together on the pressure. It's like, I think Phil Church would call it like Top Gear fear, that you've like got to get it right. You've got to do it. And you're doing it for each other at home. It absolutely decimates family life, marriage, everything, because we are we've got this shot at making this amazing show and making some money and security. And I'm obsessed by that because of my childhood. I'm obsessed with like financial security is the answer to everything.
What do you mean because of your childhood?
Because it was tough times I know people will go, what? You went to a boarding school with Jeremy? But in the book, you'll see what I mean on that. There's a nuance to what I'm saying there, where you grow up with the obsession that financial security solves everything. That really does by happiness logic. You sort of go, no, I know it isn't true, but you think it is. I do. So it decimates home life. The pressure of like delivering, same schedule, we don't grow the team enough, and we are exhausted. That's all coming together, and then we, in our power, get a bit giddy, and we start to get a bit ragged with like how we conduct ourselves, how we manage like what's the right thing to do and the wrong thing to do, and we start to screw up at that point.
What sort of stuff?
So, a good example, Mexico, when we insult the Mexicans, and in the news item. Now, ironically, the BBC compliance team, they pass it. They go, that's okay, because for whatever reasons you can do national stereotypes or whatever. And if there's a stereotype that Mexicans love sleeping and not doing much, we're allowed to play with that. But we didn't play with it. We were just nasty with it. We just loved the sound of our own bloody voices.
That's the interesting part, isn't it?
Yeah,
The nastiness was so
charmless.
unlike Top Gear.
Yes.
That's what I remember watching that going,
yeah,
whoa,
it was, and we didn't see the
don't do
difference.
that. You're
right.
You do it in a fun way.
So when we do lorry drivers murder prostitutes, everyone, Daily Mail's going batshit, sure, but everyone else is laughing. And Eddie Stobart's ringing up going, I never laughed so much in my life. And we do murder them. And it's like, it's funny, and viewers are going, he made the stupidest joke, which has got a bit of a trope to it. And this wasn't lorry drivers murder prostitutes or Jeremy going, people in the middle lane on the motorway, we should have snipers on the bridges to shoot them in the middle of the face. That's what I'm doing when I become Prime Minister. People go, that's not really going to happen, so we'll laugh at it. But Mexico is just horrible. And then we get all the death threats piling in from Mexico. And I'll do a little run-up how this all starts to come to be.
Death threats?
Oh, tons, yeah. They're all coming into the office. But the BBC go, well, it's okay, it didn't breach any whatevers. So I think a little bit cowardly, we go, yeah, well, we didn't breach anything, so we're all right. But inside we're actually going, nah, this was shit, we were ashamed. Then I get an email from the Mexican embassy about a month later, and we'd slagged off the Mexican ambassador as well in that piece, because at some point in the news item, one of them goes, I bet the Mexican ambassador's watching this and he's going to be on the phone tomorrow. And then one of them goes, no, he won't, he'll be asleep. Audience laughs. As it happens, he wasn't asleep and he was watching it, right? So he sends the firm protest over to the BBC demanding an apology to the Mexican people. They don't give it because they go, we didn't breach anything. They give a personal apology to him, but not to Mexicans. We go down to, anyway, they invite us, this email invites all four of us to come down to the embassy to celebrate National Independence Day, Mexico, and we're like, well, we're going to get murdered when we go there, but we've got to go because this is like James Bond and going into the baddie's lair. So we get our suits on, we go in, me, Jeremy, and James, because Richard's away filming. The Mexican ambassador is the nicest man on the planet. And he's like, guys, when you said I was asleep laughing, I cracked up. He went, I actually did die laughing. And he said, and myself and my press guy, we laughed about it. But then we went, right, we've got to get serious because actually you've insulted our country. He said, so there's the irony. I got an apology I didn't want or need, and my country didn't get one. And that's what it does need. So by this point, we're feeling like this tall. Also, there's margaritas everywhere, and we're not real spirits drinkers, but they're delicious. So we're about 3 in and getting pissed. And like, that sort of shame is compounded by we've had a few. So Jeremy's like, right, I'm writing my Sun column this week about, it's going to be a full apology to the Mexicans. So we did it. We did it properly. But it took the Mexican ambassador to sort of right the ship and show us the error of our ways, that it could all be sorted.
And if that hadn't happened, do you think it could have caught your kind of giddiness, the ego's running away with you, could have...
Well, that's my point. That's when I'd then go on to say, is like, that was great. That lesson was learned from him. But the lesson we didn't learn was that we have any consequences.
Yeah.
Because he, like a diplomat, offered a solution. We took it, and all was smoothed over, and he was nothing but charm. So you sort of come out of that embassy trashed, going, well, that went well. But by that point, we are quite high on our own entitlement that we can do anything. So we do that slope joke, which is shit, and get caught for it because there's no permission to do it. We just did it behind everyone's back. All right, had you not shared that with the lawyers and people? No, because you'll remember this. The BBC works on that referral system, whereby it's your program, the onus is on the program to go, is this okay to transmit? And we were like, well, they won't like that, but it's a little silly Vietnam War film, Commando mag, silly reference. It's not a big deal. So we'll do it. And then I went, and nobody will notice anyway, which they didn't, except some old hack in the Daily Star did notice it. Then it all unravels. And at that point, we are in a world of, there's a management layer in the BBC so the ones that we'd annoyed, the editorial policy people, were like livid because they had been so helpful all through the years. And they let us go with things like lorry drivers and prostitutes and all that. They gave us fantastic leeway because all those things were always defensible. So they're like, why did you lie to us? Why did you pull the wool over our eyes? Why did you do that when we've done nothing but be helpful for you? And we were like, we just felt like shit. Absolutely like shit. Because we had gone, like kids, we'd gone too far, you know. And we did all our apologising. But then by that point, there's a section of BBC management that absolutely doesn't like us. Whereas the editorial lot are like, we'll get through this, we'll kiss and make up, but fucking hell, behave.
Not again, yeah.
Yeah. And then there's an element that doesn't like us, and then we're basically battle lines are drawn, you know, to the end.
And what were Jeremy, James and Richard like in this kind of atmosphere?
The office is very much, they come in to do meetings and record stuff and then films. I'm in there all the time, like dealing with management coming in and out and what they want to do. Jeremy wants to know.
Yeah.
So he's like ear to the ground about everything. Richard probably a bit more as well.
Did they feel untouchable though?
At this point, yeah, I think we do. The show was so tight and we were so popular and the good times were so good. And because we were like in our own little bubble, out, you know, not in the BBC, I think the office, they didn't feel fearful of any of it, but they were just like, here we go again. Yeah. You know, we're on our roller coaster ride. And they like being part of our, you know, this gang that is it's a show that does well and it's a proud one to be on and your CV looks good when you're on it. And it's lively as hell, the whole thing.
You know, we used to talk about it all the time when I was working at the BBC, both on kids' telly and Formula One.
Oh, really?
Well, because you weren't at Television Centre. You
No.
were in your own porter cabin somewhere else. And
Well,
there was all
one, yeah.
There was all these rumours like you can't get there, they won't let you in to watch the show.
bollocks,
It's like they run by their own rules. And we were like, oh, well, that's how we want to be.
There was that, and I think we also made the place a bit. I mean, it was a pigsty, and I remember like we had this great press officer, Tara, and she'd be in the press office. She'd right, I'll go down and see Top Gear now, and she said a couple of times people would go, "How can you work with that lot?" And she went, "Because they're really funny and they're actually really charming and they're actually really nice." And they're like, "No, that can't be true," because there was this perception that it was like Animal House, you know, and that we were like misogynistic dicks or something like that. And she went, "It couldn't be further from the truth. It's actually just like some blokes, and there's a lot of girls who work there, and it's tiny turnover.
Yeah.
Runners had become producers. So it's not one of those shitty toxic environments. It's just a bit chaotic."
But it did challenge your mental health, right? You talk about in the book that you were on antidepressants by the end of your time there.
Oh, God, yeah. And it was a classic me, or anybody actually on that show at that high up. You take the antidepressants, but not the warning that came with it. I didn't allow the thought that burnout could exist. But the hours we were doing were, 2 or 3 in the morning in the edit. And that was 4 nights a week. Then the weekends you're going through the film that's going to go out on air on Sunday. And you're doing it all again. And then, like I say, that thing at the back of your mind, like, that film's not as good as the last one. And how are we going to keep 8 million viewers? Whereas most shows, I think, when we've had a good run of 8 million, are going, look, it's okay to slip down to 6. It happens. It's fine. We could not entertain it, and we couldn't enjoy any of it. I think because we were so insecure, and because it had grown so organically, it was so much part of us.
Yeah.
But the insecurity was a huge one, was that we couldn't let that go, because then I think we'd go, right, what are we left with? We're left with ourselves, and that's not a very nice thing, because we're probably not very nice people. We're just a bit useless, That's what we thought. Our insecurity, the knock-on of that, was that we took hold of the show.
Yeah.
And what I mean by that is we didn't take hold of it like in terms of contracts and IP. We took hold of it in terms of everyone else at the BBC, stay away, leave us to make this. And once your insecurity makes you do that, because we're like, this is going to define us and we're going to do it once we start to see how good it is, that is then a hamster's wheel, a huge one that you've created. And insecurity drives that. Because you don't want to then, having set yourselves up as everyone stay away while we make this, you don't want to screw up. And then the other thing, I don't know how you feel about this in TV, but not everyone's a jack of all trades. And I've got particular skills. Like I say, I'm really good in an edit. I can run a team, but I'm not a great light bulb moment guy. That's Jeremy. So I'm always like worried that I would be found out if I don't do what I'm doing. That people go, well, when's the next? They go, you created Top Gear. I go, no, I didn't. I actually didn't. I helped make it.
On High Performance, our guests often remind us that recovery is the foundation of performance and that sleep is the most powerful tool for our health and success. Yet most of us don't give our sleep enough attention. We spend a third of our lives asleep, yet many of us only think about our mattress when we move house. Imagine the difference if we treated our sleep with the same intention as our training or nutrition, because that's where true performance and health can be unlocked. Using real sleep data, Simba has designed hybrid mattresses that support your spine, reduce motion from your partner, and help you stay cool throughout the night. Simba's innovation has earned them over 100 sleep awards and 6 Which Best Buy titles across their range, including the adjustable hybrid pillow and their cooling duvets, all created to help you achieve your best night's sleep. They offer a 200-night no-quibble trial, a 10-year guarantee, and next-day delivery straight to your door. You don't realise how much better you could be sleeping until you try a Simba. Shop now at simbasleep.com/high performance. This episode is brought to you by Bupa Global. On this podcast, we talk a lot about what it takes to perform at your best mentally, physically, and emotionally. But one thing I've learned is that even the most disciplined routines can be derailed by health issues if you're not supported properly. And that's why having access to world-class healthcare wherever you are isn't just nice to have, it's a critical part of performing at your highest level. And that's what Bupa Global provides. It's called International Private Medical Insurance, IPMI for short. And it's built for people who live, work or travel across borders, but still want the same premium healthcare experience wherever they are in the world. Their health plans provide more benefits than standard health insurance in the UK. And what I love is that Bupa Global isn't just about reacting when something goes wrong. It's about being a true healthcare partner. So they're there 24/7, 365 days a year, focused on keeping you performing at your best. You can see specialists without a GP referral, get expert mental health coverage, choose where you're treated, and access proactive care designed around high-performing lives. Perfect for you, right? And here's the thing, Bupa Global's been doing this for over 50 years. They've built the world's largest network of expert healthcare providers, and because they have no shareholders, it allows them to reinvest profits back into innovative treatments and care. It's all about creating a superior healthcare experience wherever life takes you and your family. Visit bupaglobal.com/high performance to learn more. I want to talk about a few really significant Top Gear moments. I think television is very interesting because I think it sometimes insulates you from realising that what you're doing is actually potentially very dangerous. Because if there's cameras there, it all must be fine. And I know that the Richard Hammond's sort of rocket car crash generated a lot of headlines because he was seriously injured. But actually, I think when he crashed the Rimac for you
It's the worst.
was worse.
That gave me the hot neck still, because I think, yeah, obviously at the time when he crashes the jet car and he's upside down and then you're in the hospital in Leeds and they go, if his brain swells, then it will kill him. But they go, so there's nothing we can do. And you're like, so it's we wait. Now that you're literally ripping your own skin off. You've got demons. That's horrible. But then I think by the morning they said no, he will live. We don't know what he's going to be like, but he will live. So you drop down a notch. At least he's going to live. This is no orphans or widow or anything like that. And then, because it was those times, the Richard recovery and it's all about getting Richard back on air. And it's like a big hero story in a movie. He's back, it's Rocky, That was the times. And the crash was titanic and massive. And it sort of had a movie thing to it where poor old Freddie's crash was horrible and just debilitating and nasty. And so much more sort of tragic in that way. The poor bugger, that one. Ooch.
Horrible.
And,
yeah.
But the Rimac one was, the fate element is what gives me the shivers, because he rolls down that hill, 300 and odd feet down that hill, and he comes to rest on the roof, and he's in a supercar with, windows like that. He knows he's bust his knee, he's conscious, and he's like, I'll wait here till somebody gets me, because he's very calm. Brain works brilliantly. I'll wait until someone gets me out. Why should I try? Then he smells the burning and goes, I can't wait. And he's got to kick that window in and climb out upside down in a supercar. And the claustrophobia there of that. But what keeps coming back to my head is if he'd been unconscious, nobody would have got to him. Because there were it's Switzerland, there's loads of fire and ambulance stuff around. But he's gone and rolled down the hill away from everybody. And it's that like, fuck, what if he'd been unconscious? Yeah. And I think we don't stop doing the show, but same as we don't stop doing the show when we come back from Argentina, we just go. But after a while, you start to put them in your little book and go, right, how many lives have we got left? James is crashing Norway. You're like, okay, that's another one. And we didn't expect that one. So how many of these have we got left? And as we're aging, and our brain is also now switched from, with Top Gear, it's how long can we keep it going? Or how high can we go, I guess. Once we get into the autumn of the Grand Tour is, when do we end?
Yeah.
We have to pick the right moment to end, because we have to end on our own terms. That becomes the most important driving factor. We can't keep going out there like status quo, another retirement tour. You know, we've got to stop. So that becomes a driving force. And these crashes start to have a bigger resonance now about we're pushing it.
And in that situation as well, as the exec, as the most senior person, like, there's a real personal responsibility mindset, I guess, for you as well, right? When Richard Hammond is upside down in a burning supercar.
I'd like to say yes, but we're such a group, it isn't. I don't sit there going, I know it's going to be me in court with a suit on, but we don't. I didn't think of it like that. I think the safety's so good, the office is so good. I have learned to delegate about that kind of thing.
Good.
So you're going out with the best stuff. So, whereas a jet crash, I did have those thoughts. It was on me, you know, in my head. I am the one who's going to have killed him. How can I live with myself anymore? You know, it was like that. Whereas the other one, we were such a machine about health and safety and everything else. By the time we get to Rimac, you've absorbed it.
Yeah. Before we talk about the way that it did end on Top Gear, what do you look back on as the greatest film that you ever made, and why?
Can I have two?
Mm-hmm.
Well, there were two specials. One was Burma and one was the Middle East. And it wasn't what we did so much. It was, I remember that period, it was like 2000 and whatever, 8, 9, 10. The world, for a moment, was a nicer place. We could go and get permission to film in Burma, in the deepest, darkest parts of Burma. And now it's another frigging civil war there. It's all closed again. For the Three Wise Men, we land in Iraq. We go through Syria. We're in towns like Aleppo. The people are calling us in, giving us like drinks and sweets and food. And you got guys running around going, Captain Slowly and all that sort of stuff. And they adore those three. And there's Palmyra over there. And then fast forward and ISIS have annihilated the place. We drive through Damascus and you go, top 10 great cities of the world. Mm-hmm. So for a moment, the world is an amazing place. The films were good. But what I took back was the whole, like, shit, how lucky are we that we're going to these places and work in them. And you felt there was hope for a while, that the world was actually going to go that way, that we were going down to embassies and getting permits. Syria, yes. Iraq, yes. Burma, yes. I remember we were in Burma one night and they always give you like a government official, and they always pretend the government official is there to make sure your hotels are all in order, but they're there to spy on you. And we had some young fixers who were government, and then this older guy, the classic older guy who was like real pensionable age. And of an evening, we'd all sit in wherever we were, and he'd sit with his whiskey, knocking it back. And then one evening he was like drunk and he laid into all of us. He just started about how we were taking the piss in his country, how we did what we liked. We had no respect for anyone. None of it was true.
Yeah.
Because we were very careful about that. But he just laid in and laid in. And I was like, with the producer going, shit, if this guy reports us back to head office with these thoughts, which aren't true, we're going home. And the younger fixer had heard it all. And he went, I've already rung the office and they said, put him on a bus home tomorrow. It was like the younger guys, they were like, we're not doing that anymore.
Yeah, yeah.
That old guard who can just...
So interesting.
Yeah.
Can I give you a few things that I loved about the show?
Yeah, go on.
Well, as a TV person, the Stig, purely because it's so, in some ways it's nothing, in other ways it's everything.
Yeah.
How did you even create that character?
So we needed, like, we're back to 2001, we're putting the show together, And we're trying to work out how the show will operate on air. We've got an hour, and we know we need we've got a Richard, we've got Jason Dawes, used car. Everyone's got skills. We don't know what Richard's is yet, but we know we're having him. We've got Jason Dawes, used car. We've got Jeremy doing road tests and stuff. So Rich can do that. But we need a racing driver, because that's what Top Gear had with Tiff Needell. He could race and talk. Very rare combo for racing drivers. Okay, they can kill me, but I think we're right on that one. And it was, apart from Martin Brundle, who's the king.
Yeah.
So we're like, okay, and Sebastian Vettel, all right. So we're like, they can we need that guy. And I got into a sort of complete frenzy, because I was like, okay, we've got an hour and we've got all these things like the news and the guest. And if you do a film, Jeremy, and if Jason Dawes does a film, Richard does one, we haven't got room for a fourth film, but the Tiff Needell character's got to do a film. And we need him because we've got to do the lap stuff on the tracks, the powerful cars on the track. And then I sort of threw my pen down. I went, not that we can find a fucking racing driver who speaks anyway. What are we doing? And then Jeremy went, hang on, why does he need to speak? And I was like, what do you mean? And then he went, okay, look, I can do the slidey shit. Car going around the corner, smoky tyres. He went, Tiff taught me to do that. I can slide a car. What I can't do is lap times. I don't know. Like you said, I can't hit the same apex lap after lap after lap, or shave tenths off a car. I can't do it. But I can do all the slidey theatrical telly shit. So we went, so how do we have it we'll test a Ferrari or whatever. I do the slidey shit. And then we just have the racing driver. He's got one job, and it's to set the lap time, and then he doesn't speak. And then he went, again, his light bulb, he went, even better. We make it so that he never speaks, and we don't know who he is. It's we cover him up. People will then start to guess who this guy is, and we give him a name, and people start to guess. So I was like, well, what should we call him? And he was like, I was watching Pulp Fiction the other night, we'll call him the Gimp, right? And that'll be him. So we hire Perry McCarthy, who's a good
Do you say we want to hire you as a Gimp?
Well, this is it. So Perry comes in, I'm like, that's your suit, that's what you're going to look like. And then you lap the cars, you never speak, you never take your helmet off. And then you're a character, so you got a name, and you're going to be called the Gimp. And Perry goes, and you can go fuck yourself. And we were like, okay, not the Gimp then, right? And he was like, no, it's not. So it was like, what do we do? And then Jeremy was like, Stig. And Stigs were new boys at our school. That's what they were called.
Right.
Stig was a new boy for the first year when they did it.
I've always wondered where the name came from.
Yeah, they did all the jobs, and that became that. And then, sure enough, he took off because people did start to go, and, you've got social media now. It's becoming a force. Who's the Stig?
And everyone thought it was
It's
some
Damon
mega
Hill.
star
It's
F1
Damon
driver.
Hill.
Yeah.
It's always Damon Hill, yeah.
Love that. As a Formula One lover growing up,
Yeah.
I loved it when you got Michael Schumacher on the show. Not only was it that you got Michael Schumacher, but what you got him to talk about as well. A, no one got him, and B, no one really was able to probe him in areas that he didn't want to talk about, and you managed that.
Well, we'd had him, Jerry and I had done a series on that man. Jesus God, he's my hero. Not Jeremy, the other one.
Why?
Schumacher. We saw him more than once. We come across him more than once. And I think we watched him grow from being a boy under the sort of control of Briatore. I don't mean that nastily, but he becomes his own man. He gets married. When he goes to Ferrari, the magnitude of that job. Every Ferrari driver who goes there moans if it's not right. Did we ever hear him moan? And he goes there, the car's a dog in 96, and he knows he's in for a 4 or 5 year plan to bring him back to glory. And I remember Ross Brawn saying, lunchtime he's playing football with the mechanics. He likes a game of football, but he knows this is all part of it. You build that, the big superstar driver is with the mechanics. He is with them all the time. You do stuff together. He'd go around the factory, shakes hands with everyone sweeping the floor, everybody at Christmas. And it's like, and Braun's going, people don't see this. They just see the villain on the track.
Yeah.
They don't see what he's doing in that factory. We did this series for the BBC in the late 90s called The Science of Speed. Nothing to do with Top Gear. It was a BBC One science thing, Science of Speed, and one episode's about fast people. You've got to have him. Ross Brawn fixes it up. Schumacher says yes. We go over to Mugello because they're testing there. And it's the week before he goes to Japan, and it's a decider, him or Hakkinen. So he's got a lot on his plate. We talked to him at the track. He drives Jeremy around a bit, and we said, we want to talk to you some more. And he goes, come to the hotel then this evening. And Sabine, his manager, says, yeah, we can have half an hour there with him. So you go ahead and get set up. So we go to the hotel, and it's this 4-star hotel in Mugello, best one in town, but this is what it is, businessman's hotel. We go in, and we're like, oh, we can't do him in his room. That'll be shit, you know. So I go to the manager behind the bar, behind the reception. I go, can we close your bar for an hour to do an interview? And he went, no. And I was like, it's for Michael Schumacher. And he went, and his face was like Basil Fawlty, that moment of realization. He goes, moment. And then it's like empties the whole bar of everybody. We've got the bar. We set up and we talk with Schumacher in there, and he mucks about with Jeremy, plays slapsies with him to talk about hand-eye coordination. He's like, this is the least scientific thing I've ever done. We ask him about bumping into Villeneuve and knocking him off.
Yeah.
And this is the crucial bit for me about what a man. We ask him about it. He gives a good answer. He goes, I knew it wasn't right. I absolutely knew it wasn't right. But I grew up in that era of Mansell, Senna, Prost, Piquet, where they played fast and loose.
Yeah.
That was a tough driver era, you know, where they were the stars of it. And he said, and that was in me, definitely, that's my schooling. So I did it, and I knew it wasn't right. Do the interview on that. And then he talks about how much faster he thinks Hakkinen is than him on the day. So really lovely interview. Then Sabine goes, wind up half an hour. We start packing everything up. And he sits there and he's like, so what happens now? And I was like, well, we're just packing stuff up. And he goes, what are you doing? I said, well, we're just going to have a beer while we're packing up. And he goes, does this bar stay shut until you empty it out? And I went, yeah. And he goes, well, I'll have a beer then. And then he has a beer. He stays for another half an hour. And he explains how, because you've got to understand, in Italy, I come into the hotel, I can't go out. I go to my room, I ring my wife, I have dinner room service, watch telly. That's my life. And he goes, so I'm in a bar. And it was just like joyous talking to him. Anyway, where I'm going with this story, I sound like Ronnie Corbett anecdote. But he,
another of my heroes.
He, a year later, we've cut that interview together. We need the footage. I ring Bernie.
Yeah.
And I say, so we need this, this, and this. We need him in the wet in Jerez, blah, blah, blah. And we need him bashing into Villeneuve. And Bernie goes, you're not having that footage, son. And I was like, no, but we need that because he's talked about that. So we need him just smacking into Villeneuve. And he went, nah, you're not having that, son. That's in the vaults now. That's history. No one wants to see that again. I was like, Bernie, we've done a whole chat with him. We've got to cover it with something. He went, not having it. Sorry. I know you would. You want it, but you're not having it. Phone goes down. Half an hour later, it's Mr. Eccleston for you. I've changed my mind. You can have the footage. And I was like, oh, Bernie, thanks. He went, all I want is a signed fax from Michael saying he's happy about it. And it's a year on, and I'm like, fuck. So we get hold of Willie Webber, Schumacher's manager, and Willie Webber tell him what we want. And Willie Webber goes, I'm with Bernie. I'm going to say to Michael, that's a no, because it is the past. We're all done with that now. It's buried. New era, it's done. I'll tell Michael no, but I'll pass it on. Willie Webber, half an hour later, Michael said, oof, yeah, but I did do the interview and I did talk to them. So yeah, they get the footage.
What a man. Man of his word.
Yeah, so he means a lot, that man.
But
not just because he got us stuff. It was just the way he became his own man, and he had values.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You get a bit emotional talking
Oh,
about
yeah,
him.
yeah.
Why is that?
Because it's just like fate is such a prick.
Yeah.
That a man of his abilities, and doesn't he stop to help a kid up who's fallen over skiing? What the fuck? You know? And then toe rags go along through life getting no comeuppance. Yeah. He would have done so much as an ambassador for whatever he wanted to be.
Yeah.
And again, on the track that day was so funny. You know, when Jeremy went, I've got some other questions for you, and Schumacher went, I'm sure you do. You know, like he knew there were tough ones coming. Like, he's so at peace.
Yeah. We then come towards the end of your time on Top Gear and the infamous Jeremy Clarkson punch of a producer. I mean, like, do you get jaded talking about this? You must have talked about it so often or thought about it so often.
I talked about it a lot. I was never there, and I'm never going to talk about it in the sense that if anybody wants me to unpack it, I won't, because one, I was never there. Two, Jeremy and the producer have agreed never to talk about it, so it's their business.
Yeah.
It's absolutely their business. So all of us, just like, that's it, we respect that. And everyone who's got an opinion about it has got it. So what I focused on in the book was I'm with him in that period when he's suspended to get him fired, because he turns himself in after he's had the bust up, and then he's suspended.
How do you mean turns himself in? Like,
well, he rings Danny Cohen, who's the boss of the BBC, and goes, been a bust up, you know, gun and badge on the desk, and he's suspended. So, and then at that point, he's sitting waiting because he's done whatever interviews he's going to do. The BBC interview other people. The press are circling. The BBC are doing their internal talking, as we've just seen with the shit show that they went through the last couple of weeks. We know that internal talking is never clear lines. It's all over the place, but it's going on. Nobody talks to me because, one, I'm not there. Two, they don't think I've got any. There is, and they're fair. That's fair. I've got nothing to offer. The only thing I've got to offer is, like, do you realise how much our show was falling apart at the seams? The wheels were coming off. But
could you explain that for us?
Just that pressure that in that last series we were filming, the whole thing was collapsing in on itself. Our timetables, our everything. We went on air and we still had 3 shows worth of films to shoot. And once you do that, that's like starting an F1 season and you still haven't built the front of the car. You know, you're like, well, we'll do it as we go.
And is that because you guys weren't doing what you used to do? Or was
just
it...
the timetable shrunk and shrunk.
Right,
and shrunk.
okay.
You lose a bit from that series. You lose a bit from that. You know, you finish your film a bit later. We had this golden rule. Before we go into studio to record the studios, which is 1 a week, have all the films shot.
Yeah.
Because when you go into studio, Monday, you're looking at films and getting them ready to lock. Tuesday, the lads are in writing their stuff for the Wednesday studio record. Wednesday studio record. Thursday, I'm with the other guys editing the studio and the film packages together. Show goes out Sunday. Where in that do you go and shoot a big film? But that's what happened. So people were like, Wednesday night, you'd finish the studio record and then it's off to a location to film Thursday, Friday, Saturday. You know, and it's just, it was collapsing in on itself. I mean, we were a big team.
And this incident and that sense
that
of
was
pressure,
it. That was the
they weren't
environment.
unrelated, right?
Yeah, I'm not going to sit here and go, so everybody's excused their behaviour. That was the environment. My point to you was, nobody came to the BBC and talked about it, and I didn't go and offer it either.
Yeah.
Because they would have gone, well, it's irrelevant. You should have run your show better. Fine. But, so it was just sitting and waiting, and we didn't talk much because I think, like blokes, you can talk about how your team did, what your favourite spaghetti is, but you never get into deep stuff. So we just didn't talk much. So I kind of observed and I watched. And what I saw was he was, you know, there were a few big PR Supremo guys who were like going, do you want some help? You know, do you want some management, reputational management help? And he just kept saying no and no, putting the phone down, sat in his flat. And he cut himself off. And I think my interpretation is he knew this huge thing was in jeopardy, and he was waiting for his punishment. Because although he's top of the tree, teams are so important to him, to be part of one. You know, if the crappy little beer and sausage rolls thing we'd have after every studio record, all the sort of sell-by-date brown food from Sainsbury's, we'd snarf on that. He loved it. It was like, this is our moment. When we've done a good show, we eat this shit, we have a beer, then we go home. And it's all the crew, cameras, everybody, runners. He was happiest in that environment.
Yeah.
So there was no star behaviour.
So was
And
it?
I think that's what he's put in jeopardy. That's a problem.
Right. Not losing his highly paid TV job. It was about the
Not
people.
the show, it's the show.
The team.
Because the show's become everything to us for all the reasons I've said, be it through our insecurities or whatever. And that's what's going down the bog now. So yeah. There may have been a bit as well. We were all so exhausted that did we go, shall we let it crash? You know, it's fate telling us to stop. I don't know that bit. But we sort of, we weren't kicking the public doing those million strong petitions.
Yeah.
Were fighting much harder than we ever were in terms of on the front foot, if that makes sense.
Yeah, it does make sense.
Yeah.
Maybe that's an indicator that you can probably only reflect on now a few years later, that maybe you were just done.
That we were done, yeah. And we still had allies. We had people who didn't like us, but we still had allies. But maybe it was a full stop. We just had Argentina as well. We got through that. So maybe we were just thinking, bloody hell, this is a shit show that maybe has to end.
And when did you know it had ended?
When the BBC decided to fire him, and I get it now, I didn't at the time, they can't tell anyone. They briefed, I think, the Daily Telegraph the night before, because that BBC news machine, they're fucking good at briefing. So, the PR machine. So they briefed them the night before that he was going to be fired. And it was quite telling they briefed the Telegraph, not the Guardian. It was like a right-wing paper. So I thought, okay, it's quite clever, because everyone will believe it from the Telegraph. And then the announcement was made at, 10 o'clock that next morning, 10:30, but not a word had been said to anybody in the Top Gear crew. So we're in the office just waiting to do something or think to do another day, and it comes on the telly. And we've got Top Gear magazine, Top Gear TV, and we're two offices next to each other. And there it is, Jeremy Clarkson's contract will not be renewed, blah, blah, blah. And you're like, fuck me, that's it. That's it. It's actually happened. I don't think Jeremy knows it. I think he's got the call. But they've coordinated it so that it's like BBC News know, all the outlets know. And then I was just livid that they hadn't told us. But I knew that now, in hindsight, you could never tell us because we'd just gone mental with it. Yeah. So I rang the PR guy who I knew had orchestrated it, called him a 4-letter word that probably can't be used here. He didn't care because he's got other shit to do. He's doing what he's doing. He's not interested in what I've got to say at that point. I'm just ranting.
And then you called Jeremy?
Spoke to Jeremy. I can't remember what we said. And I think, from memory then, he's phone off, Yeah. Gone round to his flat, but he's phone off. And then there's that slow process of getting back together again, where the dust settles a little. The BBC asked me to carry on. I'm like, you literally don't understand what you've lost.
Do you think they didn't realise what they had?
No, not a clue. I mean, it's not their fault because we'd kept the doors shut on it. We gave them the show every week, and they go, wow, and that's popular and everything. But they didn't know what we're doing. They didn't know how tight the office was. They didn't know how close we all were. That we'd become like this dysfunctional family, and how long everyone had been together. They didn't see what had gone into the making of it. To be fair, why should they? Because we didn't let anyone in. We didn't have an open day. So look at us at work. That's the food that's been there on the floor for 6 months. We didn't have a sort of day like that. But yeah, it was, I think the BBC then has that moment where it actually knows it's fooling itself slightly, going, so we carry on. We get some new people. Top Gear's our show. We carry on. And they're kind of hoping, asking someone like me. And I was like, I was polite, but then I put my hand up a notice in, going, I can't do this. You know, I'm not doing it without him. I'm not making a Top Gear because it isn't a show. It's the thing we made. And then the four of us find ourselves like looking for a home again.
And did they try and keep you, but also keep James and
Didn't try and
Richard?
keep me, apart from that first, would you do the show?
Right.
Controller of BBC Two was like, what shall we do next steps? And I was like, leave me alone, please. And then I said, no, I'm off. So then they tried to keep Richard and James, which was a very smart move, because to cut the four of us in half, suddenly Jeremy and I are not less of a proposition out in the world, because
I
it's a
hadn't even
threesome where
considered
everything.
that, actually, that it would work in the BBC's favour to split you up, so you couldn't go and be a powerful force somewhere else.
Because I think they knew deep down, without Jeremy they're damaged below the waterline, but they then are on that mission, that self-righteous mission to go, Top Gear is our property and it's bigger than anyone who hosts it. They're on that mission. They'll tell themselves that. So to get that going again, the easiest thing to do, if I'm not going to do it, is they're going to keep Richard and James, because they split us four. They literally take us off the chessboard. And you've got two of the much-loved people. And I think at that point, they think, and then we can work out the rest. You know, we'll somehow work out the rest. It won't have Jeremy, but it'll work. That was their logic.
Wow. So did you think at one point that you wouldn't get Richard and James with you?
There was I never allowed myself to think it, but it was a real threat. It was a real threat. We had to, because we just agreed a 3-year deal to do more before Jeremy got fired. And then, so that's gone. There's a big 3-year deal, good money. So they could say to Richard and James, you know, that deal's back on the table for you guys and a bit more, sort of thing. So the money's good. Why would they not? And then they said, you can also run the show editorially. Massive hook. Massive hook. And I think their third point was, you know, Jeremy's proven that he can be a liability. Why do you want to be saddled to saddle your coach to a horse that's always out of control? You can just carry on as before, less problems, blah, blah, blah. So we eventually, the four of us, had a chat about this situation. We were really grown up round at Jeremy's flat. And Richard and James were like, that's the offer. And we were like, fucking hell, it's a good offer. Can't argue with that offer. And Richard especially was like, but if we can stay together, it would be good, but we've got to have something to go to. It's got to be, he didn't mean like a counter offer, like I'll sit here, you work it out.
Yeah.
It'd be good, he said, we have to have something that's solid that we can go to. So American agents luckily had seen the news, and they don't give a shit about this sort of like fracas. So they're like on the phone going, do you want to sign with us? The agent's like, sign with us and we'll find you a home. So we did that. We picked an agency, went with them, and then quickly it became a discussion between Netflix and Amazon. and they were both offering good money. But we liked the fact that Amazon Netflix were already there in terms of output, size, everything, and Amazon in terms of TV were down here. So we were thought, let's go with the runt, because it's a bit like the logic of when the BBC asked us to go on to BBC One when our numbers got big. We always refused and stayed on BBC Two deliberately, because we were like, if we go on BBC One with our 8 million, we'll just be there below EastEnders and we'll be like a hit. Whereas if we're with our 8 million on BBC Two, we look like fucking, rock stars. It's just perception, smoke and mirrors, but there we are. So we thought, we'll get looked after at Amazon, because Amazon had a plan, which was to launch Prime globally, and they needed a show. They didn't have a show to do it. And if it worked out, we'd be that show.
Would you ever consider helping the BBC to recreate Top Gear?
Yeah. No, I don't think they wouldn't want our help anyway. They wouldn't want our help. And they do need someone who wants to bring that show back. It will never come back, people keep asking. And this is my personal opinion. I don't think it will ever come back, ever, unless somebody in the building has a will to do it. But I can't imagine there is a will to do it. Freddie's terrible accent knocked the stuffing out of the show. And it's right and proper that everyone just like collapses and licks their wounds and everything else and mourns. But then there's nobody left afterwards who goes, right, what do we do about this show now? No one in the building's doing that. Nobody is interested in doing that.
But also with no Grand Tour, there is no motoring show on the television.
There isn't. There's just a farming show.
Which is where the conversation needs to go to next.
In the next 12 months, you must have 12 shows shot and on air in a new show that is spiritually close to Top Gear, but without getting sued. I said to the producer who brought all the budgets together and everything, I said, do you think we can do this for 2 million quid? And he looked at me and he went, yeah. And I thought, you lying prick. It was 5 million. The bill was 5. And this one lawyer went, James, I notice on the Top Gear show says, oh, cock, quite a lot. Is that a format point?
Check out the rest of our chat with Andy right now on Run Where It Happened, and we'll see you again soon, right here on High Performance.